Good morning, everyone. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, turning in our gray hymnal to the very first hymn number 1, as we sing together, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door, in the gray hymnal, hymn number 1.
Happy Halloween. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor on this not so dark and twisty morning. We are a liberal religious community that has been working to make the world a more just, peaceful, and loving place since 1865. My name is Stella Gorlin. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve this congregation as the Director of Spiritual Growth and Development. Whether you're here in person, joining us on the live stream, or watching on demand at a later time, thank you for the gift of your presence. Whether you've come back again and again, or this is your first time with us, we are so glad you're here. If you are new, you're warmly invited to a newcomer welcome, which is right after the service in the Redmond room. If you go right out these doors, it'll be your second door on the left before you get to the wall of name tags. You can also fill out a newcomer survey on our website, uuaa.org/newcomer survey. That will help us get to know you and help you make connections. Next Sunday, as part of our service of remembrance, we will build a memory altar. You're invited to bring a photo or a memento of a loved one who has died to add to the altar during the ritual. Our elementary age kids will head to the Foz Chapel after the Time for All Ages to participate in a similar ritual that I will lead, and so they are also invited to bring a memento of their own. And a quick reminder that next Sunday is also the end of daylight savings time when we fall back an hour, so hopefully the extra light in the morning will remind you that you need to get up and get to church. On Friday night, we held our annual Halloween Friday Fun Night celebration, and it was quite a party. Yes. Our youth and their advisors and some of their parents created a very impressive haunted house in Foz Chapel, especially considering that they only had 2 hours to make this thing. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat about haunted houses and horror movies, anything where some creepy character could jump out at any moment, and that's basically the entire haunted house for YRUU. But I had to swallow my nerves because one of my kids asked me to go through with them. Well, the next time through, I had 2 kids holding onto my hands, and then 3. And by my 5th time through, I had a motley crew of 5 or 6 that were huddled around me, and we kind of made our way through this dark, twisty maze. As more and more kids joined our brave little caravan, I felt lighter and lighter. Grateful that I am a safe person for them. Grateful to all of the grown-ups that came in costume, manned a trick-or-treating station, or allowed themselves to be mummy-wrapped. Looking at you. And grateful to our community for embracing imagination, fun, and connection. In the spirit of spooky season, a reading from Reverend Christian Schmidt. Welcome to all manner of creatures. No matter who or what you are welcome here. Let's be clear. Here we welcome goblins and ghouls, saints and sinners, angels and devils, zombies and werewolves, vampires and witches. We welcome princesses and princes, paupers and farmhands, aliens and astronauts, robots and cyborgs, firefighters and police officers, nurses and doctors, cowboys, cowgirls, cowfolk of all varieties. We welcome Superman, Wonder Woman, Black Panther, Batman, Spider-Man, Black Widow, and Thor. Indeed, we welcome both superheroes and superstars. In short, we welcome people, monsters, and all other manner of creatures. Here we welcome you, and all of who and what you are. Welcome. Let us begin.
Isn't it amazing that when I'm wearing this mask, you have no idea of who I am? But if I remove it, you will instantly know who I am. That's right, I'm Fred Astaire. And I'm honored to have been asked to lead the chalice lighting this morning. If you are watching online right now, please light your own chalice or candle and let us know in the chat where your chalice is lit. Now, I learned that this is something that this congregation and just about every other UU congregation does to mark the start of the time you spend together. So I would like to invite the mysterious person at the piano to come up and help us light the chalice. Now, when we light the chalice, we're reminded that even a single flame can offer us hope when times are darkest. Now that our mysterious person is here, oh, wait. Without the mask, it's clear this is Allison Halerz, and Allison will light the chalice as we say these words together, and all are welcome to join me as we say, "We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace." Thank you, Allison. Oh, I mean, mysterious person who plays the piano. Now, since this is my first time at a Unitarian Universalist congregation, I also learned that the idea of covenant is foundational to this faith. It's encouraging to know that one can be part of this community without having to adhere to only one belief. There's no creed that you have to recite, but rather you have a covenant, which are promises you make to each other about how you want to be in relationship. I find that a very inclusive and radically welcoming concept, and I'm so glad I dropped by today. So let's say the words of this covenant together. Whether it's your first time, like me, or you know this by heart, please join me as we say, "The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
Oh, you saw me already. As retired United Methodist pastor Steve Garnos Holmes writes so beautifully, Halloween, a day when we get it right. Strangers come to us, beautiful, ugly, odd, or scary, and we accept them all without question. Compliment them, treat them kindly, and give them good things. Why don't we live like that? Our story for all ages this morning teaches us that real belonging might be just a Halloween costume away. A Tiger Called Thomas, written by Charlotte Zolotow and illustrated by Diana Kane Bluthenthal. Once, there was a little boy named Thomas. He was very nice. But when he and his family moved to a new house on a new street, he took it into his head that the new people might not like him. So he never left his stoop. "Why don't you play with that little girl Marie?" his mother asked him. "Maybe she wouldn't like me," Thomas said. "Of course she'd like you," his mother said. "Why wouldn't she?" But Thomas didn't answer. "Why don't you visit the lady with the black cat down the street?" his mother asked. "They might not like me," Thomas said. "Of course they'd like you. Why shouldn't they like you?" said his mother. But Thomas didn't go. "Oh, Thomas," said his mother, "everyone will like you. Why don't you go play?" But Thomas shook his head and just sat on the steps, watching. The lady in the house across the street was always out in her yard, watering the plants, raking the leaves, sweeping the walk, picking her flowers. And all the while, Thomas sat on his stoop and watched. He watched the old man who came up the street with his big black poodle 3 times a day. The poodle always looked over its shoulder at Thomas, and its tail stood up like a small palm tree and wagged from side to side. But Thomas just sat on his steps and watched them pass. He watched the sparrows and the grackles and the blue jays in the trees. He watched the black cat watch the sparrows and the grackles and the blue jays in the trees. But he never went off the stoop to play. At Halloween, his mother came home with a tiger costume for him. "Try this on," she said. Thomas put on the orange and black striped suit with its quilted tail. He put on the mask with its long whiskers. "How do I look?" he asked his mother. "Exactly like a tiger," she said. Thomas looked in the mirror, and his mother was right. "No one will know who I am when I go trick-or-treating," he said. There was a large orange moon in the sky, and it was already getting dark when Thomas went out. The branches of the trees hardly showed, except where they laced across the moon. He crossed the street to the house of the lady who was always outside. The chrysanthemums were still blooming in front of her house. "Trick or treat," Thomas called when she came to the door. "Well, hello," the lady said. She dropped a package of orange candies into his bag. "Happy Halloween." "Thank you," answered the tiger. "You're welcome, Thomas," the lady said, closing the door. Under his mask, Thomas flushed. "That's funny," he said to himself. "She called the tiger Thomas." At the next house, he rang the bell. "Trick or treat," he called. Marie's mother opened the door. She had candy apples for the treat. "Oh, thank you," the tiger said, for he especially liked candy apples. "You're welcome," said Marie's mother. "Marie is a witch tonight. Maybe you'll pass her. But anyway, come play hopscotch here tomorrow, Thomas." "Thank you," Thomas said again. But when the door closed, he reached up to feel his mask. It was still on, covering his whole face. "That's funny," he thought. "She knew who I was, too." He passed a tall ghost going up to the house as he left. He couldn't see the ghost's face, but there was something very familiar about this figure, as though he'd seen him around before. "Hi, Thomas," said the ghost. "Want to play horseshoes tomorrow? I got a new set." "Sure," said Thomas, for the ghost was Gerald, another kid down the street. Thomas could tell by the height. He went to the old man's house. The black poodle threw back his head and barked wildly when he saw the tiger at the door. But when he sniffed at the tiger's feet and sniffed at the tiger's quilted tail, he suddenly put up his own palm tree tail and wagged it hard. "Trick or treat," the tiger said. The old man had made big pumpkin cookies. "Fresh baked, Thomas," he said, winking as he dropped one in the bag. "Best thing for tigers," he added, and winked again as he watched the tiger go down the steps. He called the tiger Thomas too, thought Thomas. Now he rang the bell at the house of the old lady and the black cat. "Trick or treat," he called. Come in, the little old woman said. Her black cat looked curiously at the tiger, and the tiger reached out to stroke the cat's black, slippery fur. "He loves that," the little old lady laughed. "Come play with him again, Thomas," she said. "He gets lonely." "So do I," said Thomas. She knew too, he thought to himself as he turned toward home. The orange moon was a little higher in the sky. The sky was a little blacker than before. He couldn't see any of the branches against it now. A group of ghosts and goblins was coming down the steps of the lady across the street, and a solitary but familiar-looking witch with her broom under her arm passed him. He looked at her curiously as he walked slowly toward the steps of his house. It was Marie. "Hi, Thomas," called Marie. Thomas walked upstairs to his own room. He looked in the mirror at the tiger. The tiger in the mirror looked back at him, whiskers and all. "Have a good time?" asked his mother. "How did they know who I am?" Thomas asked. "Did they?" said his mother. "Yes," Thomas said. "The mask didn't fool them a bit, and they all asked me to come back." "I guess they all like you," his mother said. Thomas looked at her. Suddenly, he felt wonderful. "Oh, I like them too," he said. And when he took off the mask, he was smiling. The end.
Hi, my name is Kristen LeSueur, and I have the pleasure to serve this community in the Chalice Singers Choir and as one of the co-chairs of the Leadership Development Team. The story of why I support this congregation is one of community. In June of 2019, when I was 5 months pregnant with Liara, I was out to dinner with a friend from this community when I got the kind of call we all dread. My beloved Aunt Susie had lost a lifelong battle with depression and had done the unthinkable. Susie was not a member of this community. She had no defined faith, no one to give a eulogy or give comfort to her family. Luckily, I did. I had you. This community rallied around me. Reverend Theresa stepped up to help plan and give the service at the funeral home. More than a dozen members of the choir volunteered to sing at her memorial service alongside me. I received this lovely comfort shawl. It feels like a warm hug every time I wear it. Reverend Manish sent flowers and a beautiful handwritten card, and I received countless cards, flowers, hugs, and shoulders to cry on. The love that you extended not only to me, but to my whole family, it was such a comfort, and we still speak of it with appreciation at family gatherings. This is a community that shows up for each other in large and small ways every day. I am practical enough to know that every way in which we show up for each other costs money. From the yarn for the shawls, to the scores for the choir, to the lovely cards and flowers. I give because it's a tangible way to support our UUAA community and the wider community. I give because I want to show up for someone else the way you all did for me. I give because I believe in the work that we're doing and the community that we're creating. I am so honored to be in community with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Our stewardship campaign is coming to a close at the end of this month. That means if you haven't made your pledge yet, please make every effort to do so by this coming Friday. There's still the chance to win a gift basket in the raffle. And if you are unsure how to make a pledge work for you, please talk to me, Reverend Manish, or our administrator, Deb Markham. Remember, our operating budget is based on our pledge money. It's a very simple equation. If we don't raise enough to cover existing costs and expected increases, such as those for insurance for employees, then our existing level of staffing and programs will have to be cut, and new initiatives will likely have to be on hold. So let me say that again. If we don't raise enough to cover costs, staffing and programs will have to be cut. You heard Kristen's very personal story today and how this community showed up for her in a time of need. You heard the same theme the past 2 weeks in testimonials from Kyla Boys and from the Hildebrandt family. And these are just a few of the examples of how UUAA has made a difference in the community, how it has literally saved lives of countless members of this congregation. So please make your pledges today. Out of 365 households that we are hoping to hear from, we have only received forms back from about 170. That's not quite half. So if you are among those who have already pledged, please accept our heartfelt gratitude. But if you are one of the procrastinators, you've had 26 days now, and there's only 1 week left. So it's time to pledge now.
We show up for one another in so many ways. Perhaps you were on the receiving end of a meal train, or perhaps you made a meal for someone else in need. Maybe you volunteered with our children and youth, or perhaps your children built bonds with other trusted adults in our SGD spaces. Maybe you found your calling as a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity or Alpha House, or perhaps you serve on the Visions of Justice Council, or you tend to the grounds and gardens as a way to feed your spirit. From donuts and coffee on Sunday to OWL trainings, from serving pizza to sweeping the social hall at Friday Fun Night, we rely on one another to make this place come alive. We offer our time and energy, we teach and learn together, we work for justice and inclusion. And through it all, we commit to a life guided by love. There are many ways to give. You can drop cash or checks in the collection baskets as they pass through the rows, or you can use a digital option. You can text UUAA to 73256 or visit uuaa.org/giving. However you give, thank you for your generosity and for your commitment to a brighter future. Today's offering will now be given and gratefully received. Gift. Thank you so much, the Sparks. Will the ushers please come forward? And as they do, I invite you to rise in body or spirit, wherever you may be, and say with me the words of dedication. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you.
Happy Halloween week. You have no idea who this is, right? Oops, let's see. You do? Who is it? There we go. Now you know me. I want to invite you on a journey with me to a place I got to visit when I was on sabbatical about 1.5 years ago. Australia, my first time going there. And a particular place in Australia, in Melbourne, called the National Gallery of Victoria. This is Australia's largest art museum. Now, I know some of you are either artists, my husband is one, or you know the field well, I don't. So it was at the National Gallery of Victoria I got to learn a little bit of the difference between contemporary art and modern art. I didn't know prior to visiting there. But essentially, if you were like me and you're not really sure, modern art is through about roughly 1960, and then contemporary art is since then. And contemporary art in particular is known for the ways in which it speaks to contemporary, modern, social themes or societal themes that we're actively grappling with. And the National Gallery of Victoria loves contemporary art, and I discovered I love contemporary art. And I got introduced there to an Australian artist by the name of Richard Luer. Now, this is really cool. Every couple of years, the National Gallery of Victoria creates this free 10-day period where anybody at all can visit the museum for free in the evenings. And it was during this 10 evenings in a row, this 10-day period, that Richard Luer made himself available at the National Gallery at their invitation. And as part of what became an exhibition, a project called Confessions, he invited guests and visitors to the museum to meet with him and share with him one thing that they have never told another person before: confessions. And out of these various confessions that were offered to Mr. Luer, he would live in the gallery hand paint panels that were rectangular or square. And these panels were subsequent to the 10-day period in which he was meeting with attendees and guests at the museum. They were assembled into these geometric shapes into a display, an art display called Confessions. And this happened in January of 2024, and I happened to visit the National Gallery of Victoria in March of 2024, just 2 months later. So I got to see this exhibit entitled Confessions. Now, I want to invite you into kind of a little bit of the emotional milieu with me if we're going to go together and visit this exhibit. On this particular day, now I didn't know what I was going to see at the National Gallery of Victoria. It was my first time there, and I had been traveling during my sabbatical intentionally by design, by myself. So I was not spending that sabbatical time visiting friends or families. I was on an individual sojourn, you could say, spiritual journey. And while it was by design, that aloneness, there were periods of time where I would feel quite lonely. And this was one of those days that the loneliness was catching up with me a bit. And as can be the case when we feel lonely, I was also feeling a little bit sad. And in the middle of feeling those things, a bit lonely and a bit sad, I am at the National Gallery of Victoria, and I turn the corner and enter this exhibition space called Confessions, and am confronted with the first such series of panels that Luer created, floor to ceiling, in a room that's about, it could have been this size or even larger, and with this kind of height. And you turn, and I turned, and we turned together to see one of these panels, floor to ceiling, like this. Now, don't strain your eyes, because I know that's too small to potentially read, but as would be the case if we were there together in person, we'll focus in on some of what's written on these individual rectangles. Looking more closely, we see, I have imposter syndrome. I think I'm unlovable. I talk to my cat more than to my family. I only married for the money. I could be right-wing, but I'm not supposed to be. I feel unattractive because of my race. And that's just the first wall, so then we turn to look at another floor-to-ceiling wall, and we see, I love to gossip. I have a crush on my teacher. I'm a complete disappointment to my family. Sometimes when I'm at the park, I don't pick up my dog's poo. I've been reading my partner's diary. I turn away when I see a homeless person begging on the street. We turn to a third wall. I like it when my friends are jealous of me. When people talk to me, I don't really listen. I hold grudges. When I say I'm working from home, I'm not really working at all. I put my career over love. My son wants to be an artist, but he's terrible. We turn and see a fourth wall. I have a crush on my best friend. I have texted many times while driving. I use comedy to hide my sadness. I'm happiest when I'm alone. It was me who called the cops on our neighbor's loud music. My best friend's baby is so ugly. Showing up a bit lonely and a bit sad, it was interesting to observe in myself how being present to these authentic expressions of vulnerability helped me feel connected to people I had never even met before. I felt this resonance, and in that, the loneliness that I had been feeling evaporated. It's an amazing thing how taking the risk to be real allows us to connect with others in ways that are deep and meaningful. And of course, having experienced this at the National Gallery in Victoria, there was no way I was not going to bring this back to us here in Ann Arbor. I fell in love with this art exhibit, and the first thing I could think is, oh, we have to do this too. And so I'm going to invite you in a week that honors Halloween to do something that may be a little scary, but maybe also a little bit okay. I want to invite you to reflect on the hidden parts of yourself that we keep hidden behind masks. And I'm going to invite us to participate in the communal exercise that Richard Luer modeled in his Confessions art installation. Now, a QR code has gone up, and we rarely ask you to take out devices while we're together on a Sunday, but this is one such time. If you have a device with you, please take it out. You can power it up. Scan the QR code. This is our preferred way of inviting you to participate in this exercise. Now, if need be, if you don't have a device, the ushers have paper versions of the same little submission form and pencils. And if you'd like the ushers to bring you a paper form and a pencil, please raise your hand. And Stella has a kid's version because, of course, kids have things that they can share too. And so if you're a kid, a younger one, you can also raise your hand. And our Director of Spiritual Growth and Development, Stella Gorlin, will bring you a form to fill out. Now, why we ask you to, if you don't need to do it on paper, to not to, is because if you do it on paper, somebody's going to eventually have to transcribe it. So you are doing us a solid if you don't need to do it on paper. Now, this too is a little bit different than when we normally solicit participation. For this exercise, anything you submit is anonymous, unattributed. But in service to the power of being able to create a sense of what those hidden aspects of our human experience can be or are, we will later publicly share what is shared with us today. So no names will be attached to anything. It will be anonymous, even if you do it, submit it by writing. As things are transcribed in, they'll be transcribed in without a name. Your participation today invites personal reflection, authenticity, and potentially a sense of revelation or confession. Now, my one suggestion, as you saw with Luer's art exhibit, these were not long descriptions. These were pithy, short, direct-to-the-point statements. And in their directness and to-the-pointedness, there was power in how those statements were phrased. So we invite you that you don't have to write a lot. You can capture the essence of what you're trying to say in a very short way, and we encourage you to think of it that way. We invite you now to take a few moments of reflection with some music as we participate in this shared opportunity. How was that? Thrilling? Or perhaps a bit scary? Well, the best Halloweens always have a bit of both, right? They're a little bit scary, a little bit thrilling. So at least I could oblige and provide you some of that. If you filled out the form on paper, on your way out, there will be baskets, and you can feel free to leave the paper submission in the basket. And then beyond that, I would say stay tuned in the weeks and months ahead. We'll find a way to share back some of what we received. There may even be an artistic version. We'll see. When I saw Richard Leward's art exhibit, and that it was called Confessions, an old longing in me was reignited. Having grown up Hindu, I was always kind of jealous that my Catholic friends got to have confession. By the way, did you know that the original form of confession was always public? You had to, in front of the entire community, admit what you had done and make amends. It was only in the 3rd or 4th century that confession shifted from being public to private. Anyway, as a kid and as a teenager, I thought confession sounded great. You get your own private time with a religious leader, and you can tell them anything, and both spiritually and legally, they have to take whatever you tell them to their deathbed. I would have used this all the time. Every little insecurity, doubt, personal fear, anxiety, it would have all been offloaded onto the priest. I would have been stopping on my way back home from school. And I would have gotten in trouble, I know, because none of those things are sins per se. But it wouldn't have mattered. I could then confess my sin of deliberately misusing the confessional. So we'll save sin for some other Sunday. But for now, the thing that really drew me to the Catholic concept of confession was the intimacy and the deep trust of being able to tell someone things that really mattered that you didn't know how to talk about with anybody else. Disclosure with confidentiality, personal revelation with a certain amount of acceptance, care, and support. And while the Catholic concept for this was a container for mistakes and transgressions, I longed for this kind of container for everything. Sure, for mistakes, but also insecurities, fears, private joys, all of it. And there are some successful models of this in our society. The most prominent of these for me are 12-step support groups, in which the main goal is to provide one's full care and attention in listening deeply and being present to others. It's a form of sacred witness, really, unconditional, deep listening and presence. What you have shared stays confidential, and you're not supposed to try and fix, solve, or debate the experiences of others. It's a beautiful and proven, highly effective model for how our personal presence, our full presence, can become the spark of another person's growth and transformation. And by the way, our Unitarian Universalist small group ministries, including our chalice circles here in our congregation, are built on the same principles of deep listening and presence. So we humans, we can find pockets of society in which we take the risk of letting others see our full selves. But why only pockets? Can't we live this way all the time? Didn't Brene Brown, a decade plus ago in Daring Greatly, point out that vulnerability was essential to human flourishing. Now, we Unitarian Universalists, we love Brene Brown, and I do too. And I have a sense it's because of the fact that she's deeply scientifically grounded in her methodology. Her research samples are tens of thousands of people over years. Her work is extensively peer-reviewed and published before she ever says anything about the nature of human beings and the things we might want to try out to live to be our best selves. So it's on the other side of deep and significant scientific research that Brene Brown tells us that human flourishing hinges on our ability to risk being vulnerable. Now, the beauty of Brene Brown truly is, while her work is rigorously researched and peer-reviewed and vetted and all of that, it's also intuitive. The findings and conclusions she typically points to make common sense when we sit with them, when we're present to them. We know that without vulnerability, others do not really know who we are. And that's something we can feel on our insides when it's true. We know it. We know it when others don't really know who we are. One of the heartbreakingly loneliest experiences we humans can have is to be surrounded by people, maybe even hundreds or thousands of people, and to feel like no one truly knows who we are or could ever know who we are. That kind of loneliness is soul-crushing. I've known it intimately at several times in my life, and perhaps you have too. But because of that, precisely because of that, I've known that kind of loneliness, perhaps you have too. We also know the deep joy that is possible when you're around others, maybe even in community with others who get you. It's magical. It's something each of us inherently deserves. It's not something we need to have to earn. Rather, it's a gift. It's a gift that each of us deserves to receive, and it's a gift that each of us can lovingly and generously bestow. In Daring Greatly, Brene Brown, this seminal work of hers, she says that vulnerability requires three things. It requires uncertainty, it requires risk, and it requires emotional exposure. In her words, she says, let's think about love. Waking up every day and loving someone who may or may not love us back, whose safety we can't ensure, who may stay in our lives or may leave without a moment's notice, who may be loyal to the day they die or betray us tomorrow. That's vulnerability. Love is uncertain. It's incredibly risky. And loving someone leaves us emotionally exposed. Yes, it's scary, and yes, we're open to being hurt, but can you imagine your life without loving or being loved? All authenticity requires risk. Yes, as a significant other, as a lover, but not only that, as an artist, as a writer, as a singer, as an author, as a leader, as a parent, as a sibling, as a friend. Showing who we are runs the risk of feedback, criticism, and/or rejection. The moment we stop hiding behind or wearing masks, the moment we make ourselves truly seen, we might very well receive feedback. We might very well receive critique. And herein is a tension. There is joy and beauty in opening up to others. And side by side, that possibility of joy and beauty comes with the risk that we may hear things we don't like in response. Of this, Brené Brown goes on to say, if we stop caring about what other people think, we lose our capacity for connection. When we become defined by what other people think, we lose our willingness to be vulnerable. It's a tightrope, she says, and the safety net below are the people in our lives who can help us reality check these two extremes. Staying connected to others in a good, healthy way requires caring about what other people think. And being authentic and vulnerable requires not being defined by what other people think either. There's an invitation to balance here, and as Brené Brown notes, in community with others, we can find the support that helps us find that balance. As I close, I want to just share a few lines from Theodore Roosevelt, and this is from a speech that he gave at the Sorbonne in 1910. This speech is included, passages of it are included in Brené Brown's book, Daring Greatly, and it was the inspiration for the title of her book. President Roosevelt says, "It's not the critic who counts, not the person who points out how the strong individual stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. They who actually strive to do things in the world know great enthusiasm, great devotion, who spend themselves in a worthy cause. At best, know in the end the triumph of high achievement, and at worst, if they fail, at least fail while daring greatly." May we each greatly dare, audaciously dare, to be our own authentic selves.
Will you rise in body or in spirit, turning in our teal hymnal to number 1007 as we sing "There's a River Flowing in My Soul" in the teal hymnal number 1007. my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Beloveds, as we enter this week in which we do celebrate the costumes and masks and make-believe of Halloween, enjoy that source of joy, intergenerational connection, frivolity, lightheartedness, and hold in your heart that deep knowing of the gift that you can freely give and bestow to another, your accepting presence, your allowing another human being to be who they are. Such an unconditional act of graciousness and love. And the thing that we're able to offer, we know, is also the thing we long for ourselves. And that's how we bring it alive, by freely and generously offering it to the world. And then we trust that that same thing will return to us. Know that in the week ahead and weeks ahead, you are encouraged and supported in living into that, and so much more, until we are together again. Go in love, go in peace. Amen.